I am also the community resource manager. Help to plan and build the library. We're one of 5 in the United States, so you could tell that we have a lot going on. It's a different kind of library because we have a branch library on the first, and the second and third floors are specifically archives and a museum. Is that enough?
I think that sounds great for right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has been very interesting discussion. I could see where I can help in several ways.
Yeah, we appreciate your participation in this.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And so just looking at our list, I just want to make sure I haven't forgotten anyone else that may have joined later. Representative Exum possibly, or is there anyone else that's on this committee that we have not, that has not introduced themselves yet? Okay, I think we're good. So Amy, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Dan. So for those of you who joined after the introductions, my name is Amy Beatty. I'm with the Attorney General's Office. I serve in a dual role at the Attorney General's Office. I serve on Attorney General Weiser's leadership team, as well as overseeing the natural resources and environmental attorneys who represent all of the state governmental functions that pertain to natural resources and environment. With me today is the brains behind this operation, fellow Lindsay Ratcliffe. She is with the Natural Resources and Environment section through a program that allows new graduates from law school to come and experience the Attorney General's office for a limited period of time. So she'll be with this section working on all the things that the section works on over the next year. We represent the environmental functions of the Colorado Health Department at CDPHE, water quality, radiation, air quality, hazardous waste and solid waste. We work with the Colorado Energy Office, and then we work with Dan and all of his, we like to call them his children, all the agencies that roll up into the Department of Natural Resources. And so Lindsay and I have been supporting Dan because I represent Dan and the Executive Director's Office for DNR. So that's why I'm with you guys today. I do also represent a couple of other boards. So, but I've never helped launch a board. This has been a really interesting process, and I'm looking forward to learning with you all. We wanted to give you just a very basic overview of some things that you can expect that will be coming down the pipe for you all. And there's going to be, I think, a little bit of fluidity between what I tell you and what I think Dan and Tim's expectations are, and also the things that you will have some say into, including things like your processes. But just for today, I wanted to kick things off to let you know that we will do a much more in-depth board training. I did talk to the folks at the Office of Boards and Commissions, and they mentioned that many of you are really seasoned board members, so a lot of the things that I'm going to tell you are not going to be new to you, but your board is governed by the Open Meetings Law, Colorado Open Records Act, the potentially Amendment 41, and also the Colorado Conflict Statute for members of boards and commissions. We aren't prepared to do a training for you all today. We were concerned that with all of the new information from Jennifer that you guys were learning, that if we tried to put a sort of more robust and fulsome board training into this meeting, that everyone would have some Zoom fatigue. So we are planning at some point in the future to be able to provide a more robust board training for you all that will include the applicability of all of these laws that govern boards and commissions in the state of Colorado and what you need to know. However, before you left today, I did want to make sure, and I would love to know for that training anything else that you all want to learn. So between now and when we gear up that training, it would be very helpful if you would email Tim, Dan, Johnny, me, or Lindsay, and let us know if there are particular things that you would like to be trained on in your role as a board member. And we will be sure to add that to the very sort of classic structural things that we want to share with you. However, before you walked out of here, I did want to make sure that for those of you that have been subject to the open meetings law before, that I refreshed your memory. And for those of you that are new to it, I got to share with you that there is one thing in particular I think you need to be quite careful of, and that is that the open meetings law applies to any meetings of 2 or more members of any state public body. So that means if we were non-COVID Zoom called and we were live and in person, and we had our 5-minute break just now, and 2 of you ran into each other in the women's restroom and wanted to start talking about the things that were on the table for you all to be making some decisions about, that the open meetings law actually technically prohibits an accidental bathroom conversation about the public business of this board. So, and it's 2 or more people. Those of you who may be more comfortable with local government, the local government statute is 3 or more people, but the legislature made the distinction between a state public body and limited it so that essentially they want your conversations about your public business to be held in public, so that people have the opportunity to hear the things that you all, the discussions around the decisions that you all will be making. So another just very quick refresher for some and introduction to others. Meetings include emails, phone calls, Zoom chats, and like the example that I use, the hallway or the bathroom. So meetings are essentially anytime you would like to discuss public business with another member of this board. This is the fun part of the meeting, of course. And so then also it covers public business. So what is public business? The statute doesn't actually technically define public business. There's also scant case law on what constitutes public business. A really nice shorthand is essentially the things that are the public policy making functions and decisions of this board. So really, if it's meaty and it's something that is within the purview of your public function as a public body, then it's probably public business. So, and all I'm sharing with you is that you are prohibited from having these discussions, and if you have these discussions, there is risk associated with your having those discussions. But a remedy, so for example, if it happens, is that we just simply disclose that the discussion occurred in the content of it. There is also an opportunity for you to discuss certain things that the open meetings law has deemed appropriate for you all to discuss amongst yourselves without the public present, and that is when you are authorized to hold executive session. There are certain statutory drivers and case law drivers and common law drivers for when you may actually hold executive session, and we can get into that more when we have our board training. But you'll see at the bottom of this slide, it says the moral of the story is please don't talk to each other outside public meetings. And actually, I would like to amend that to say, please don't talk to each other. You guys can go and hang out with each other and talk about all kinds of things. What the moral of the story really should be is don't talk to each other about public business outside of the meetings, okay? All good? And we can talk about this more when you have your training, but at least for right now, this is just a nice sort of designed to be a broad guide to carry us over between this kickoff or launch and when we have our training. You heard, I think, several times today some reference also to bylaws and or your processes around how you will make your decisions. You're just getting going. And so You do not have a bylaws document. We don't have a draft bylaws document. We were very interested to hear the presentation earlier about the process between this board and the federal board, so that we, Lindsay and I, will be taking a crack at crafting some bylaws for you all that we will get feedback on from Dan and Tim and Johnny and Chris about what you guys, sort of, there are going to be many places where you have a lot of discretion over how you decide what goes into your bylaws, what you want to put in your bylaws versus guidance or procedural documents. And so we will work with Dan and Tim and Chris and Johnny and others to bring something to you so that you guys have an opportunity to react to it. We think the process is probably likely to be iterative. It will be helpful for us to review the other 48 boards that are doing something very similar, so that we learn from their experiences, and those that research will help us guide some of the things that we'll bring back to you through this iterative process for you to be able to do things like draft your bylaws and your guidance documents. But the bylaws can include things like, what are your powers and duties? There's membership that is spelled out in the executive order that was issued by the governor. It only goes as far as it goes. There are some members that are designated for a shorter period of time to stagger your terming out. So one of the things that Lindsay and I can work on with the team at DNR is membership and how to appoint or to deal with the terms and the turnover of your members. Do you guys want officers? Do you want a chairperson? Would you like a vice chairperson? I think Johnny right now, I heard Dan say that she's taking notes for this meeting. Do you want a secretary? Do you want somebody who's actually responsible for reviewing the minutes and having the minutes be a formal function of your group? Meetings, you have quite a blank slate around how you hold meetings and where you hold meetings. One of the things that Colorado encourages by statute but does not require is holding meetings outside of the metro area. So if you have funding and resources available to you and you want to, Jennifer mentioned that there were other groups that do actually take the show on the road and hold meetings and make decisions in the places where those decisions may impact the local community. So you all may decide as a board whether or not you would like to assign yourself the obligation to, say, hold one meeting during the summer in a location that is not the Denver metro area. That's obviously just an example, but you all will be able to make those kinds of decisions. And then you have quite a blank slate around the process that you want to use for reviewing applications and making recommendations. And Dan and Tim and you all will have the ability to choose things like I just learned today, that you can either go through the federal board and have that board put processes or put the recommendations together and do homework and make recommendations to you all, or they can come through you all and then head up to the federal board. So there's a lot here where you guys have a lot of flexibility, and we will come back to you with a recommendation, and we'll let you know that you could have you have sort of a fork in the road. You could choose A or B or C in terms of process, and then you all can kind of beat up what we bring to you as a straw man. So the possibilities are kind of limitless around these things, and we will work with you throughout the process so that you guys get very, very, very clear guidelines around your process, because I would imagine that if you don't have a clean interface, then you guys are going to have a lot of sort of messy pathways to get to you, and we want to make sure you have a very nice, very clean, very predictable, very user-friendly process in order to get information in front of you. So I'm going to pause there and see if you have questions.
Amy, it's Tim Mock here. I appreciate you taking the time to join us here. Hey, I've got one question in terms of what you anticipate as a timeline. I think what I'm hearing is that you'll help us pull some draft bylaws together, and probably at the next meeting have a bit of an orientation and a conversation about that. And then it might be another meeting during which we might ratify those bylaws. Is that kind of what I'm hearing in terms of a timeline?
Assuming everybody coalesces around a draft and the questions that are presented to us are not, that don't require more process, then yes. I mean, the absolute cleanest would be that we present a draft, we get feedback from everyone about the draft, and then we come to the board at a following meeting with a final version of the bylaws for everyone to vote on. But it may take a little bit more process than that. It's hard to say, Tim. Jennifer's presentation had me realizing that there's a lot to this. And so I want to make sure that we've got the decisions being made in the right place. So there are many boards that put process around interacting with them in bylaws. There are others that do that through rulemaking and guidance documents. And I just want to make sure that we create an interface that works for everybody, that has the process spelled out really clearly in the right place.
Great. Also, Patty had a question here for you, Amy. I don't know if you can see it in the chat, but would a general discussion on a topic like varied ways that the nation has been responding to complicated historical legacies constitute public business, even if two people are not discussing decisions about any particular Colorado geographical feature?
I think you're fine, Patty. I think general discussions about the work of the board is acceptable. Specific discussions about specific matters on which you are making decisions is where I would draw the line.
Thank you so much, because I really thought, good heavens, where does it end? And now I see that there are boundaries, and we can say, what do you think about those Confederate places? What do you think about Stone Mountain? We can do that. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, Amy. This is Catherine Redhorse. Thank you again for taking the time for this overview. And I just have a question in the terms of when I'm partnering with the tribes, and sharing the duties as the director of the CCIA, I want to include that these conversations are occurring, but then, it could come to the point of where they may have some say or discussions around certain entities and renaming them, and what I know that myself, subject to Cora records, but how does that work, I guess, in terms of being on this board? Or does that make, I don't know if that is a question, but my wondering is out there for sure. How do I kind of,
I think I can, yeah, sorry for, I think I can kind of tighten that up for you a little bit. We will need to have a conversation about, once something is before you and your decision-making process and your voting process, if you would like to be allowed to continue to have what are called ex parte communications. You all will be a decision maker around some of these things. And the thing I will share with you is what are the sort of bread and butter around your decision making is that you may make decisions that people don't love, but what you want them to know is that they were treated fairly and objectively through that decision-making process. So having a sort of formal process where everyone can speak to all of you together collectively as a group, as opposed to going sort of outside the kind of more open and visible lines of communication, is going to help you. There is no legal prohibition around your having those conversations. However, if you are trying to make a decision, and I have to sharpen my pencil a little bit more about the decisions that you all will be making. But it may be that those discussions become ex parte and that we simply need to create a mechanism for you to be able to disclose those discussions. But generally speaking, before a decision is queued up in front of a board that does have ex parte restrictions on it, you all are free to be speaking to members of the public. So my sense is that your role on the board is by design for you to be able, Catherine, to connect with the tribal communities and have the tribal communities express their feelings about certain things. And then I will be clear with you all once I've been able to sharpen my pencil on what I think your decision-making process looks like from a legal structure, when we need to have different processes around those discussions, like when you might need to bring them, disclose them to the public. Lindsay, you're nodding. Am I still, the wheels are still on the bus here?
Oh.
Okay.
Can I follow up with Catherine's question? Because Amy, I think there might be a bit more to that, because in her role as the director of the Indian Commission, she has some obligations separate from that to discuss things with tribal members and even non-tribal members that are from other tribes in the local area. And I think even myself as a legislator, if I have discussions with other legislators with regard to pending proposals, because as Mr. Gibbs said initially, is that there is a big interest from legislators with regard to this. So I think that has to be sparsed out a bit. And with the tribes, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but we have a separate state statute with regard to consultation with tribes. And I don't know if it encompasses all of the areas this commission will be looking at, but it might be something you'd want to look at to see what the extent of our ability to consult with tribes, particularly Catherine's in her position.
Thank you, Representative Benavides. I really appreciate that refinement of this discussion. And right now for today, this discussion is designed to give you guys some pretty broad brushstrokes. Each of you does come to this discussion wearing a unique hat. It's part of the reason that you are here. And Lindsay and I will be able to work with you all in your unique roles to understand better things like conflicts of interest and what conflicts of interest you may be bringing to the table, what obligations you may have under particular contracts, consultation agreements, or otherwise that require disclosure or consultation. So Lindsay and I will be happy to work with individual board members about the various hats that they wear when they come to the table. There is an expectation, though, that you all are functioning on behalf of the board when you are here as a board member. So you do have two hats, and sometimes it does require leaving one hat at the door and making sure that you're wearing the appropriate hat. And in this setting, that is the hat of making decisions on behalf of this board. Okay. So for those of you that have the Reader's Digest of that is if you have special considerations, Lindsay and I can definitely help you sort through your various rules.
Great. Other questions for Amy?
Dan, I've got one more, if you don't mind. Amy, thinking about the work that's cut out for this board in working through the list that the BGN has, are we okay to begin forwarding on that information regarding the proposals that have been made, and to the degree that they're in some state that, you know, I know that Jennifer essentially talked about that email, and I think some of the background information that went through that, is that all stuff that we can begin sort of unloading and sharing with the board to begin downloading and becoming familiar with, or do we need to wait for our bylaws to be set in place?
I have a preliminary answer to that question, but I'd love to do a little bit more research. I think you're probably fine sharing that information with the board. I have to think a little bit more about process, because I'm concerned about Tim, let me pull this question offline and respond to you. And then if we come up with a clean answer to it, I would rather not wing it here. I want to answer this question right. And I don't have an answer right out of the gates.
Yeah, and so I appreciate that. It's just kind of with an eye on how, is there any way for us to begin kind of moving forward with some of the work that we have before us and becoming familiar, and to what degree and what might be available or allow us to do that. But so anyway, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, there's also, I'm sort of running the distinction between the board itself and staff and how the sort of discretion that staff has in making decisions, or the discretion that staff has to work on things versus sharing things with the board. So for example, if you share a bunch of materials with the board right now, I'm concerned it's a meeting.
Gotcha.
So I do need to actually sharpen my pencil on this question also and get back to you to make sure that, you know, I said at the beginning of this meeting when you all introduced me, my job is to make sure that your processes are so clean that people are only focusing on the good work that you do and the decisions that you make. So I'm in these really early stages. Before we're in a groove, I want to make sure that everything is as clean and tight as possible.
Amy, if I could ask a question with regard to the actual executive order, because I think there's some language in there that's a little unclear to me and maybe to some of the other members, and it became more pronounced with the presentation from Ms. Runyon. And that is that we are looking at geographic features and certain public places in the state. That's used several times in the executive order. Certain public places in the state is not defined anywhere. And what does that mean? Especially when we had the discussion with regard to even geographic locations that were natural or man-made. So what is it that is the scope of our authority to look at in terms of that language in the executive order? And I don't know if you know that now or if that could be clarified for us in the future, because it will help us in evaluating policies and procedures of how we're going to operate.
So I think you have flexibility to decide within the language that is in the executive order what you want to take on. This board will, by its nature, have a relationship with Jennifer's group. However, if your charge is broader, you did hear Jennifer say that there were some examples where the boards had decided to consider things that were outside of the purview of it's the BGN, right? Of the BGN. So if if the executive order is broader than the relationship between this board and the BGN, then you all may also decide whether or not you want to take on additional things. And we'll have to do some, and this may actually be something that we can take up in the bylaws. What exactly is it you will be considering?
I guess I'm looking at the executive order, and the language at the very beginning talks about the federal BGN having final authority. And so if they have final authority, that limits the scope, even though the language says something other than that. And if we can do broader than that is my question to you, because I think those are conflicting to some extent. I mean, I personally would want to go broader, but I'm not sure if the language in the executive order allows us to do that. So, and again, I'm not really looking for an answer now, but.
Duly noted.
Okay, other questions for Amy? Yeah,
I guess the one last thing I will share is that I was very interested in Jennifer's offer of hanging out with the board as it continues to figure out what it does and how it does it, because there are 48 others of you. And I think it will be very helpful for us as we're trying to make decisions about things like the question Representative Benavides raised about how other boards may have considered similar questions. Okay.
Great, sounds good. Yeah, thank you, Amy. And Jennifer, definitely, we want to keep you on speed dial and or your participation in these meetings would be great. I know we're a little behind schedule, and I know some of you probably have to jump on other meetings or calls right now, but I have a couple other housekeeping items. Just wanted to discuss future meetings, meeting dates. As Jennifer highlighted, there's definitely quite a few items in the queue, and we don't know what else may be submitted, you know, who knows right now even. So I was thinking that we should meet on a regular monthly basis, for right now, and wanted to just get the pulse of everyone to see what may work. And I know it's hard to look at calendars this second, but for example, this meeting is the third Thursday. Would a third Thursday, work moving forward? Or I just want to throw that out there, and possible ideas for dates. And everyone is, I know, super, super busy, but.
Could I also throw out, maybe if people would be willing, even evening meetings, or at least a consideration? Because I think a couple of people left because of their jobs, and a lot of, in listening to people's work, not knowing their personal schedule, and I know mine changes month to month. I mean, I could set it up for a regular time like this, but I cannot guarantee I can make it. Where most evenings, I think there's a little bit more flexibility for some of the people. So it's just a consideration.
How does that sound? Do we explore some evenings? I see a few thumbs up.
Dan, this is Perry. If we could do evenings, that would be helpful to me as well. But I would like to have, something scheduled. So if it is every, third Thursday or something, at least I can plan for it.
For those of us with kids, I would ask for a little bit of flexibility on the evening ones too. So you're getting it from both sides, family and job, which is always fun during a pandemic. Maybe we could split the difference and rotate. Maybe do one meeting is, we try to struggle and figure it out during the week. Next one is in the evening. And then that gives me more time to beg for forgiveness from my partner.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, that works for me too.
Okay, let's, I know we have to be a little bit nimble, and we all have crazy schedules and stuff. So let's maybe explore and when we say evening, what are we thinking? Are you thinking 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock?
I propose, and that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
People, there were county commissioners here, although I know some of the professors could be teaching at night, but that's where one of them left too. So I just don't know. Maybe a doodle poll on the next or couple might be helpful.
Yeah, Johnny can help facilitate that. Maybe we'll have a few regular kind of daytime and a few evening, and just kind of see what works for the majority of the folks. And we can switch it up too as, okay, so we will do that. And then also, as you all know too, we will likely get media inquiries too on this particular board. So as a matter of protocol, we of course cannot restrict you from speaking to the press or anything, but we do desire that you all refer press questions to Chris Aaron, the communications director, or at least give him a heads up, if you do get media inquiry. I think that'd be really great. Also emails, since this is housed within the Department of Natural Resources, you will get a DNR or state email account. We really recommend that you utilize that. We think it'd be easiest to kind of separate your work with this from your other job or your personal accounts that you have. Johnny can also help facilitate, a state email account for you if you do want to have that. And Johnny, I guess everyone has your contact information probably, or do you need to put it in the chat?
Yes, I can do both actually, Dan.
Okay, great. This meeting, of course, is just our first kickoff meeting, and we're just throwing a lot of information at you on really the next process of talking about, the protocols that we have and the bylaws and so forth. And then we'll really get down to work on the names that we have in the queue. But I just wanted to see if there are any more comments or questions before we also have public comment. And I don't know if we have any folks from the public that would like to share their thoughts too. But before public comment, I just wanted to open it up to you all to see if there are any questions or comments. Patty?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, that will take care of. Actually, I was going to talk about speaking to the press, and if I just stay on mute all the time, that will solve the problem. So, okay, I could use a little bit more clarification on when you said we should refer to Chris, but then you said at least give him a heads up if we're talking to somebody. I could use a tiny bit more clarification of how I seem to be occasionally besieged by reporters who think I am an open door. Hi, Chris, you're nodding.
Yeah, Chris, you want to help clarify that for me?
So, so I preferred the version of give Chris a heads up. I like that part, but I'm not totally certain when just to be cagey or I guess shut up is another term. So just a tiny bit more help, and it will save us time and trouble down the road if I ask this question now. Although really just never removing the mute thing would be the solution. I recommend. Chris is probably going to tell me that.
No, I would never tell you to mute yourself, Patty. No, and you've been actually a very eloquent speaker on this. So we actually, that's one of the reasons why you were on this board. So I think what would work best is, if you get a media inquiry, for some of you, you just may not want to take it. And you can just say, look, I really should be speaking to the media. You need to speak to DNR's communications director, Chris Aaron, and that's fine. For those of you that would like to, or such as Patty, who has really spoken a lot about this, I think what would be helpful for me is if you, Patty, were to give me a call or just shoot me a quick email and say, look, I've been contacted by Channel 9 that I can do an interview. I just want to let you know, and this is kind of what I plan on saying. That would be fine. Then I can just know what's coming, what to expect, and then look for the story. And then I'd be happy to talk to you about beforehand, just what you might say. I can give you any kind of assistance or tips, or not that you would need any.
We are all in need. We're always in need. So I mean, I did. The Channel 9 people came to my front door before anything had happened, and so precedent was set there, but it's not a precedent I have to follow on. So I'm happy to. I think talking to you would be great. I'll do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions before we turn it over to see if there are any public comments? I think Johnny just recommended, if anyone from the public has any questions, since they're in a different kind of room, please raise your hand. Or I think you can submit in the chat box too if you'd like to make a public comment. Dion, can you help facilitate that too, if we see anyone raising their hand?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. And I'll, at this time, I'll go ahead and open up the chat so the attendees can ask comment here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, it's open.
Okay. For the general public, this is your opportunity to just to speak if you'd like to. And if you do, please let us know who you are. Please introduce yourself and let us know if you represent any particular organization or yourself or okay. And I guess if you've called in, then you need to do *6. Is that right still?
That's right. Correct.
So *6 if you are on a telephone and would like to speak. Otherwise, you're on the Zoom and you should be unmuted, right?
They're muted by default, but I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand or indicate they would like to speak.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is it then for what we have for the agenda. I know we are a little over the time slot that we had originally planned for, but we covered a lot of information, really important topics to really set us up to have success, on this board. As you all know, this is brand spanking new. So there was just, we want to make sure that we're off to a good start, and really, really appreciate Jennifer Runyon's time. Really appreciate Amy Beatty's time as well. And really especially to all of you new appointed folks on this commission. Thank you for your willingness to step up, to participate in this. We have a lot of work to do. I really look forward to working with you. My team is here to assist you, and this is very exciting. Tim Mock, do you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add. A very good first meeting. Again, appreciate everybody taking the time here and working with us, and look forward to, I think, some communication coming from us in the coming days here to get queued up for the next meeting. And obviously, if you have any questions and if we could be of any further assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to Johnny or myself.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening. Appreciate your time.